So 53 books. What? I'm sorry, 63. I keep taking 10 off. I apologize. What keeps you writing, and what do you wish to do that you haven't done over the course of 63 books?
Nothing. I mean, I've done it. If I want to write it, I wrote it. I even wrote a book that I've been talking about. I think I've been talking about it for 10 years to my husband. We bought our house in Palm Springs, and when we bought it almost 10 years ago, I'm not quite 50 yet, but we bought it right 2 years before my 40th birthday. And I said, oh, this is going to be my 40th birthday present. And we're going to have this huge party. We're going to like have magazines come out and shoot us. And like, this is going to be like the big 40th birthday celebration house. And I joked that that was my 40th birthday gift. But we never had the party, and we had lots of other parties, but we didn't have that exact party. And I wrote about it in a book called The Birthday Girl. And I'd been wanting to write it because I wanted to write about this woman who was so self-aggrandizing, because I was so shocked at myself at that age that I had such a huge ego and this, kind of like delusions of grandeur. And I wanted to write about this woman who wants to show off so much and, bought this house in Palm Springs for her 40th birthday. And just as she's having this insane party, everything falls apart. So I'd been talking about this book for about maybe 8 years, and I finally wrote it, and it came out last year. So yeah, that was kind of my last, like, what have I not done, question. Like, if you'd asked me even 2 years ago, I'd say, oh, I have this book. It's my Palm Springs book. I always called it my Palm Springs book. But yeah, I finally wrote it. And yeah, I mean, I feel really lucky. I get to tell the stories that I want to tell. I figure out a way to, match my interests with my job, and to write the stories that I'm already contracted to write. Like I don't have a side gig where I have to get something out. Like everything kind of is in the books. So I feel really lucky that I get to do that.
Let's see. I'm watching our time, and it flies by. It always does. Where's it go? I've got about 2 more questions for you, and we'll call it a night. Does that seem reasonable?
Sure.
You mentioned ego, so I feel it's fair to follow up because you have had such a successful career. What bestseller list have you not been at the top of? When you're having that success repeatedly, it only makes sense that sooner or later you're going to sit back and think, well, I'm pretty darn good at this, evidently. We talk a lot on this show about a healthy writer ego, because you don't want to be so shy that you're afraid to put your thoughts on the page or terrified to work, but you don't want to get so egotistical that you're not taking advice from others. How have you managed your ego so that it hasn't been a detriment to you?
Yeah, I do think that all writers need to be really confident. And by that I mean, you need to kind of believe in yourself and to believe that your vision for that story or, your talent, your writing is worthy to be put out there. Because if you don't believe in that, who's going to believe in it? And especially with books, and movies, you have to go through, so many people have to like it. Like, and I even told my editor, if I can't convince these 4 people, who published, so many of my books, that this is a good idea, then it's probably not a good idea, because they're going to have to convince the sales team, convince the marketing team, and then that team has to convince the booksellers, and the booksellers have to convince, the readers. So you have to convince so many people. And so if you don't believe in yourself, how is anybody else going to believe in you? And then the other thing that you said is, not to be so egotistical that you can't take advice. Definitely, while being confident, you do have to be humble. And, and I think that you can always learn. And I always kind of remember that there's always, something new to discover about the world, or, some new, and I love working with the young editors. So my editors have now become the publishers, after 20, 25 years, they're all at the heads of all the publishing companies. we all started out, young people together, and now we're not. But the assistant editors are kind of these young people in their 20s, and it's so fun to work with them, and it's fun to work with just fresh voices, my goal is to never be that old lady on the lawn, shaking my fist. I mean, I really do think that young people are really interesting. And I think, you need to kind of learn how to speak their language and see what they're interested in now, especially now when they have so much more of a voice, and, they're changing, our culture, for the better, I think. I find it fascinating. I think it's really fun. It's invigorating, keeps me young. But yeah, my only time when I had, not just during the time of the Palm Springs house, was also the time when we were selling Blue Bloods as a TV show. This was about 10 years ago also. And we had gotten all these yeses. We were going to do it with McGee's company, and Warner was going to do it. So it was like, yes from Warner, yes from McGee, yes, yes, yes. I was working on the pitch, working on the show. And they said, oh, it's definitely going to be in the CW. The CW is so excited. They want a vampire show. And, my ego and my big head just got gigantic. And then it didn't happen. The CW passed, because at the same time they were developing a show called The Vampire Diaries. So that show was dead to me. That was my time slot. That was my 10-year series. But after I went, and it's funny, my husband says, oh God, you were so horrible at that stage. Nobody could say anything to you. And I remember that. So ever since then, I really kind of, it's like, I think ever since then, when I thought that I was going to have this huge TV show, and it didn't happen, I've kind of become a little bit more grounded, I would say. And, it's funny because a year later we did Witches of East End, which did become a TV show. And even though that actually happened, my head did not get big at all. I was like, that's never going to happen to me again. That was really terrible to be that kind of person.
Well, it sounds like it was just a phase, thankfully. And
yeah.
Well, my final question is always some variation of, if you could go back toward the start of your career, middle of career, wherever would be most helpful to you, and give yourself some advice that would have made a significant difference for you and might make a difference for everyone who's listening, what would you go back and tell yourself?
Save a lot more of it. Save a lot more of the hits. And it's funny. I guess in the beginning of my career, I was always kind of planning for it. The fact that I'm sitting here in a way doesn't really surprise me. I knew I was going to work really hard, and I knew I was going to crack it. I just had to get lucky. And I feel lucky that I did get lucky. Yeah, I think I would say, don't be so stressed, because there was a bunch of times when I feel like I was a little bit stressed out. I was a little bit too worried, about certain things that ended up not being anything. Everything always works out.